All right, today we're diving into one of the most difficult situations imaginable, trying to co-parent a newborn when the conflict between parents is just off the charts. We're going to walk through a really structured, court-ready solution that's designed to create a pocket of peace for the baby, even when there's none between the adults. And that really is the question, isn't it? It's a heavy one. When parents are at war, a newborn is literally caught in the middle. So how on earth do you protect an infant from that? How do you give them the peace and stability they need when the world around them is anything but? The source material we're pulling from today has a name for this, and it's pretty stark. Without a clear, enforceable plan, a newborn's environment is just pure chaos. Think about it. Missed feedings, no consistent sleep schedule, just constant tension. They call this the newborn danger zone. So let's be really clear about something. The whole point of this system we're about to explore isn't to fix the parents' relationship. Not at all. It's about creating a protective bubble around the infant. This structure is all about keeping them safe, making sure their routines are rock solid, and letting them bond with both parents, all while being completely shielded from the adult drama. And that's where this idea, the newborn neutral zone, comes into play. Think of it like a ready-made game plan, a protocol you can literally take to court that's designed to replace all that chaos with predictability. And it's all built on a model called parallel parenting. So what is parallel parenting? Well, it's kind of built on a pretty radical idea. It's accepting that, hey, maybe you two can't get along right now, and that's okay. So instead of forcing cooperation that just leads to more fighting, you minimize contact. The parents basically operate like two trains on parallel tracks. They're heading in the same direction for the child, but they never collide. And that brings us to the core goals. I want you to think of these as the four pillars of the whole system. Everything, and I mean every single rule we're about to talk about, ties back to one of these four things: keeping the baby safe, keeping their world stable, helping them bond, and, most importantly, insulating them from the conflict. Okay, so that's the why. Now let's get into the how. This is the practical heart of the whole thing, the step-up schedule. This is not about jumping into a 50-50 custody split from day one. Nope. It's a slow, gradual plan that builds predictability for the baby over their entire first year of life. So here it is, the whole journey from birth to 1 year, laid out. You can see it's all about starting small and building up. No sudden shocks to the system. It starts with just short bonding visits, then it builds routine, and only then does it carefully introduce bigger steps like overnights. All right, let's zoom in on those first few weeks. Phase 0, right after birth, is all about short, frequent visits, just building that initial connection. Then phase 1 stretches those visits out a bit into more predictable blocks of time. But here's the absolute key. Look at that rule. No overnights. That is non-negotiable in these early stages. The focus is 100% on daytime stability. Okay, moving on. In the middle phases, you'll see the time blocks get longer. This is smart because it means fewer handoffs, which are often a major source of stress. And then, phase 3. This is the big one. This is where overnights could start. But notice I said could. There's a huge if attached to it, something called the readiness gate, which we'll get to in just a sec. And then, as we get closer to that first birthday, the schedule starts to look a lot more like what you might think of as a standard co-parenting plan. You see a couple of common options here. The point isn't that one is better than the other, it's about what works best to keep things stable and predictable for the child with the fewest stressful exchanges. Okay, let's talk about that readiness gate. Honestly, if there's one thing you take away from this might be it. This idea is a total game changer because it takes the emotion and the arguments out of the equation. It shifts the focus from what a parent wants to what a parent has proven they can do. So what is it exactly? It's a checklist. That's it. It's a set of objective, measurable standards that a parent has to meet for 30 days straight before overnights are even on the table. No arguments, no he said, she said, just did you meet the criteria or not? It's pass-fail. So what's the first hurdle? It all boils down to this one number, 90%. A nice big 90%. So the obvious question is, 90% of what? This is the first test. The main gatekeeper for the whole thing. Here it is. The very first item on the checklist, the gatekeeper, is attendance reliability. Did the parent actually show up for at least 90% of their scheduled time over the last month? On time? If the answer is yes, great. You move on to the next point. Is there a safe place for the baby to sleep? Is the feeding plan working? Are the exchanges calm? It's not about feelings, it's about facts. Okay, so you've got the schedule down, but what happens during that parenting time? What are the actual rules of the road? That's where the infant operating manual comes in. Think of it as the baby's user guide. And it's the same in both houses. Period. No exceptions. It's all about consistency.
And within that manual, these are the absolute 100% non-negotiables. Safe sleep, that's just critical for an infant. No impairment, so no smoking, vaping, or drinking before ordering parenting time. And car seat safety. These aren't just arbitrary rules. They're about building the foundation of safety and trust for the baby, so they know their world is predictable and secure.
And to make sure everything stays consistent between homes, there's a shared log. This thing is purely for data. Facts only. What time did the baby eat? How much? When did they sleep? The golden rule here is simple. This is not your diary. It's not a place for complaints or accusations. It's just a tool to keep the baby's routine seamless. Which brings us to communication, and this is where that parallel parenting idea really shines. Communication is firewalled. It's all done through a designated app, never at the exchange in front of the baby, and it's only about logistics and the baby's health. You're basically building a communication firewall to keep all the conflict away from the child. So let's pull back for a second. When you add all this up, the step-up schedule, the readiness gate, the operating manual, what's the real endgame? It's simple. Zero chaos. The whole point is to create a world for this baby that is so predictable, so stable, and so safe that they are completely shielded from the storm. And that's it right there. That's the mission statement of this entire system, to insulate the baby from adult conflict, to create a buffer zone, a safe harbor, so they can just focus on growing and bonding without having to carry any of the adult baggage. And that kind of leaves us with a really powerful question to think about, doesn't it? In a situation this broken, maybe this super strict discipline system isn't a sign of failure. Maybe, just maybe, committing to this structure is the most profound, most difficult act of love a parent can possibly give their child.